Hi, it's Ken. Welcome back. It's the third video in this series addressing the question, what is the illusion of separation? And in this video, I'm going to explore with you how to make the shift from an experience dominated in separation, feeling disconnected and broken, to an experience dominated by connection and the innate wholeness that is who you really are. And to do this, I want to introduce you to a structure that I've been receiving and exploring and teaching since 2010 called Spiritual Mastery. It's really a structure to support you in experiencing and integrating the divine within into all aspects of your inner and outer being and life. And it really begins with a very simple understanding, which we've already begun to explore, but I want to add another dimension to our exploration. In the second video, we explored the stages of consciousness, and I want to add a perspective to the stages of consciousness that I refer to as soul embodiment. And this is soul embodiment as a concept is entirely in separation, but it's a challenging thing to be able to explore in wholeness because in wholeness, we are already fully integrated. We are already whole on every level of our being. And so there's not a lot of meaning to exploring that deeper reality of who we are when our experiences are being dominated in separation, if that makes sense. So I want to talk about soul embodiment as a journey, as a process that mirrors the stages of consciousness that we've already explored. So just as a concept, if you just close your eyes for a minute and think about a loved one who went through a challenging time, maybe a natural disaster or a disease like cancer, perhaps advanced stage cancer. And with your eyes still closed, just remember a time when you could look into their eyes and it seemed like the light had gone out of their eyes. Do you know what I'm talking about? That is one of the outward signs of a substantially disembodied soul. When the soul is disembodied, it comes up from the hips, and as it disembodies, it rises up through the torso up towards the top of the head. And when it disembodies completely, that is, it detaches from the physical presence, then we would call that physical death. And as it descends, it animates every aspect of our being. And there's much more that we can explore around embodiment, but for now, let's just talk about it in terms of a process that is mirroring the stages of consciousness. So when we're embodied in our heads, there's a dominant reference around thinking. The thinking faculty is the one that is being utilized most. So in victim consciousness, I'm feeling disempowered, identified with my disempowered separate self, and I have no control, right? Control and power lies in others and in circumstances. That's embodiment in the head. And then if we go to embodiment in the head and the heart, that is, the soul now has descended maybe down to the sternum. What we have is an experience that is dominated by thinking and feeling. And this corresponds to controlling consciousness, identification with the empowered separate self. And then there's a process of moving into conduit consciousness, which involves letting go of control, surrender, as we talked about in the last video. And as we move into that unknown, we descend from an embodiment perspective. The soul descends now down home in the body into the hips. And so embodiment, soul embodiment, gives us a pathway for moving from being identified with the disempowered separate self and then the empowered separate self, and then opening up to the whole self as we surrender and drop into the hips. And as relates the structure of spiritual mastery, there are really three ways that we can approach sharing and exploring spiritual mastery together. We can use words, and I've certainly used a great number of words in this video series sharing some of the aspects of spiritual mastery with you, a few of the key points in order to begin answering this question, what is the illusion of separation? We could also utilize guided meditation, which can be a very powerful pathway for shifting from a thinking or even a thinking and feeling perspective into a being perspective. And there's actually a guided meditation that I received intuitively at the beginning of 2009 called Divine Connecting Breath that I open all transmissions with, that I facilitate, and generally all classes that I teach. And I'd like to actually share Divine Connecting Breath with you, and I'll tell you how you can receive a copy of the video and an audio that you can download so you can listen to and experience Divine Connecting Breath. As a guided meditation, it guides you through the experience of being dominantly oriented towards the separate, the illusion of separation, viewing the world through that lens, to the dominant experience of connection. That is to say, the innate connection of who with everyone else and with the divine of who you are. That is to say, the undistorted expression and extension of the divine. Divine Connecting Breath is a guided meditation. And then the third way of sharing spiritual mastery with you is through transmission. And I've referenced this a couple of times in the two earlier videos. Transmission being the language that I use to describe the way that God expresses through me, or the gifts that express in God's presence in me and as me. And I'd like to actually share with you a transmission around embodiment so that you can actually not only understand what this shift from separation to connection is, but also then begin experiencing it on a deeper and deeper level. And there are a few final things I want to share with you in this video before I make the invitation for you to download these free resources. I want to share them with you for free. We've talked about the limitation of understanding, or the limitation of the desire to understand. Our belief in separation, that if we know and understand something, we can begin to experience it. So as we open into these experiences, these resources that I'm going to be sharing with you, I really invite you to set aside that kind of rational judge that is always running in your mind, trying to figure out, well, I agree with this, I don't agree with this, this is going to work, this isn't going to work. Just set all these things aside. Suspend disbelief for a little bit. You'll know what resonates with you and what doesn't resonate with you, and you can let go of anything that I share with you that doesn't resonate with you, just as I'm sure you have in the video series so far. No worries at all. The challenge is that if we're in the rational judge, we're embodied in our minds, and it's very difficult to crack through to these deeper experiences if we have such a strong identification with the mind. So as you open into these experiences, I just invite you to do a little bit of breathing, and we can actually do it now. I'll share the same process with you, but I want you to experience what I'm talking about. Setting aside the mind without even any guided meditation. It's just a simple breathing process. If you take a deep breath in and hold to the count of 4, and then begin releasing out to the count of 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you can do it again. Breathe in, 2, hold, 2, 3, 4, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It creates a reset, doesn't it? You're already beginning to shift from an experience in separation to an experience of connection. It's one of the reasons why I close my eyes a lot when I'm doing video, because for me, my eyes open, it's easier for me on video in particular to become more identified in separation. Whereas if I close my eyes, I'm having a deeper experience of what is actually real. And for me, we are sitting together as I'm sharing these things with you, these ideas and these experiences. We're sitting together. And as you just keep opening to the experience that follows the breath here, I can feel us moving into a deeper experience of what is actually real. And there's not even any guided meditation to it. It's just a simple breath, simple breathing process. 2, 4, 8. In for 2, hold for 4, out for 8. Couple more things before the invitation to download these free resources. There's a tension between what is unknown and what is known. In separation, we want to know things before we experience them so that they're predictable. In wholeness, we're stepping always further into the unknown, further into the divine mystery. That more of who we are is allowed to express in us and through us and as us. And so the structure of spiritual mastery is designed to support you in coming to the experience and opening to the experience of who you really are at this deeper level of you, and then to support you as you continue descending deeper and deeper into who you really are. But there's an important caveat, and that is, if the structure becomes the dominant reference point, it actually holds us back. It becomes a distraction rather than a support. So one of the things that I want to remind you of right before we make this transition into these resources is that these resources are here to support you in opening to who you already are, to what is already within you. And as you begin opening to that, you may utilize these resources in a very powerful way. But if you start discovering within yourself a desire to focus exclusively on these resources as the only way or the most important way for you to open to who you are, recognize that separation has begun to creep back in. The structure is transitory. It's temporary. It's there to help you pierce separation to open to the experience of who you are. But it must at some point melt away. It can't sustain that journey with you, because as you open into who you are, as you let go of the illusion of separation and open into the experience of who you really are, the structure itself becomes a limitation. It becomes a glass ceiling, just like each of the stages of consciousness that we explored in the second video. Okay, I think I've covered all the groundwork here. The shift in experience is available. The structure of spiritual mastery can support you in that, and there are a few key resources related to that structure that I'd like to share with you and introduce you to. Divine Connecting Breath, a deeper exploration of, or another perspective, let's say, on the stages of consciousness, and then soul embodiment, more into the concept, and then most importantly into the experience. And I was going to say you'll see what I mean, but you won't see what I mean. You'll experience it. And you won't necessarily even experience what I mean, because I can only communicate from my perspective. You'll experience it through your own lens, through the lens of the vessel of your body, as you encounter that ineffable presence within that I keep calling divinity, divine, and God. And you can call it whatever you want. It's there already. It's an honor to walk with you on this journey. I invite you to enter your name and your email address below, and make sure you check the box email me. You're agreeing to our terms and conditions, and there are links to the privacy policy and the terms and conditions on the website, so you can read up on all of those before you grant permission. Just know that I recognize that this spiritual work is entering the most sacred space. And one of the other sacred spaces in your life is your inbox. And my intention is to honor both sacred spaces and to only provide you with meaningful resources that support you in moving forward. It is such an honor to join you in this journey, to share with you the gifts that God expresses through me in answering the question, what is the illusion of separation? And further, in supporting you in opening up to the experience of your innate connection and wholeness, not just with yourself, not just with everyone else, but with the most essential energy and presence available, which underwrites everything else, the divine. I can't wait to share these resources with you. Just enter your name and email address below. Check the email me box to give us permission to send that email, and then click submit, and those resources will be in your inbox within the next few minutes. Can't wait to share them with you. Peace.